Here.
H. Smet.
Here.
Professor Allison Staudinger.
Here.
Awesome. Okay. So let's move on. You ready, Kim?
I'm ready when you are.
Great, thank you. So somebody has some background noise. If you could just mute your microphone. So we are on to the election of the chair. So this is an ad hoc committee, which is going to function like every other city council committee, commission, or board. And we are going to elect a chair. Oh, I neglected to do something. I'm so sorry. Let us just introduce ourselves. I forgot to do that during the roll call. So if we could just briefly go around and introduce ourselves and tell a little bit about one's experience with elections and election law. And let's start with, we'll start with the resident members. Terry, can you start?
Sure.
Thank
I'm
you.
Terry Racine. I currently work in the police department in the records division, but I've also worked as the chair for elections for about 6 years over at St. Bernard's.
Awesome, thank you. And then Karen Schley.
Hi, I've been a poll worker for 20 years. I've been the chief inspector, I think, for 10 or 11. I guess that's my experience. I'm retired and have a few pets.
Great, thank you so much. Susan Smith.
Hi, I'm Susan, and I am an attorney. I've been practicing law for about 20 years, licensed in California, New York, and Wisconsin. With respect to this committee, I have experience advising and defending state constitutional officers in California on all sorts of constitutional law issues, but specifically election law matters. And this included defending and advising the Secretary of State, who in California is in charge of elections, the governor's office, and the Attorney General's office. I worked for the Attorney General's office in California for about 10 years before we moved to Wisconsin. And so some of the election law issues I worked on were election issues related to equal protection, security of elections, access to elections for folks with disabilities, and then substantive law issues with respect to elections. So that's my experience. And I think one question raised was, did we vote in the last election? And I did via absentee ballot.
Thank you, Susan. H?
Yes, I'm H. James Smith. I am the co-facilitator for COVO, Coalition of Voting Organizations. I've been running it for 3 years now. But I have.
Great, thank you. And Professor Staudinger.
Well, you can definitely drop the professor, but thank you. I'm Allison, and I teach at UWGB. I'm a political scientist. And so one of my areas of interest is democratic theory and practice, including elections.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Now we're on to the election of the chair. I will entertain a nomination.
I nominate Susan Smith to be the chairman.
And a second?
I'll second.
So that's Karen to nominate and then Barb to second, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Great. Susan, you're the chair. That means you now run the meeting.
Oh, no, I should have checked my Robert's Rules of Orders. You'll have to excuse me for this meeting because it's been a long time since I've chaired a meeting. I guess I will look at we've done roll call, election of chair, approval of the agenda will be the first item.
Move to approve.
A second for that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay. The first item of business, discussion with possible action on identifying changes to election procedures.
So this category, Chair, is very broad. This is our first meeting, and so these next two regular business items really is to sort of put some bones out there that we can work on for the course of this whole ad hoc committee. And then the next one, of course, is about setting some deadlines and dates. So it's very, very broad. There's something very specific. And so I think, Chair, that's the purpose of the very vague agenda item.
Understood. You're cutting out a little bit there, but I think I caught all of that. So with respect to the first item, I would open it up to the committee to see if there are any discussion items or if anyone would like to start. Yes, Alder.
Thank you so much. So I had brought this to council, and when I was working on what I had hoped the committee would do, was the purpose of it is to be very proactive in planning what the elections for November and August would look like, and to look at positive suggestions. Of course, we need to see where were the areas that we needed improvement, and then what do we need to do to make that improvement. So I kind of had a vision of very, briefly, here's what needed some improvement. Here's what we can do better. Oh, that was Siri. Siri is on it. Okay, here's what needed improvement, and I think that Clerk Teskey is going to be able to give us most of those areas, and she's probably already got ideas, So, what do you guys think of that? That's kind of what I was thinking. We kind of list things out, and then here's what we need to do, and this is how we're going to get better. This is how we're going to do it.
Right. And I think the timeline with that is essential because that will help us. I think one of the issues may be volunteers for August and November, and trying to work proactively to make sure that we have the resources for you, Clerk Teskey, that or we can help obtain those resources, whether it's volunteers or training additional people to be poll workers or whatever it may be. So I think for us, and also knowing sort of the timeline, because I know we've got an August election, and in the election world, that's very, very soon. So love to hear some of what you have to say on that.
Sure. Absentee ballots should go out around June 25th. Around that time, we'll be getting the ballots. So that is coming up very quick. We are already getting requests. And I just want to say, I want Kim to be able to talk to, she is the deputy clerk, Kim Waite. So, she just finished closing out the election for April 7th. We have 5 people that have signed up in City Hall to learn how to do absentee request in the system. But I have talked to the WEC, Kim and I have, and they are looking to improve the process to make it more streamlined, which they gave us some examples, and if they can make that happen, it will be fantastic. The process that we had to go through before was 18 clicks just to get the label out, which was unbelievable. We won't have to print things out. So hopefully, being that they showed us like a mock makeup of it, I'm hoping that that's, moving forward quickly. So we are going to get more city employees to help with learning the system to be certified. The other thing, when you talk about polling locations and poll workers, my concern is, the mayor and Celestine and Diana and Kim and I, we were talking about, the mayor wanted to know, should we contact them now? That was our issue the last time. They had all, signed up, ready to go for February and then also for April. And pretty soon, as it got closer and we could see that, the virus was heading our way, they started backing off. So if we do it now, which seems like a long way away, but technically isn't for planning, they could still back out closer to. And that's the problem. I even said to them in the email I sent, I need to know now. I still didn't get answers. Not all of them, but just, a good portion of them. So that's our issue. We need people that are going to commit. And I don't blame them for not wanting to, the regulars. But yeah, we need people that are going to commit. There are videos out there now that they can train online. We would send them a packet, though we have our own packet of how we do things, because as you know, the law is the law, but every clerk does things a little different. Polling locations, I have a concern on that, because again, to them, it seems far out. For us, it's not. Last time I had 17 wards that didn't have a home. Mm-hmm. So that bothers me. And also, some of the places are so small, I want to make sure that we have the proper social distancing and ADA accessibility with that social distancing. So those were the two things that I think not everyone got their absentee ballot because the law kept going back and forth and we thought we, still had time to get them out and we couldn't get them all out. The other was people complaining about the 2 polling locations, that there's only 2. I just want to state, I totally understand why the mayor decided on that, because I had talked about, well, let's put a table per ward, 20 on each side, because the gym is big, and he said that's too many people. So I want to make sure that we're doing what he wants also, because he was looking out for the citizens and the poll workers for it to be safe. So those are my concerns. Any questions? Yep.
Chris, did any of the polling locations permanently bow out?
I didn't check with the fire chief, but I'm pretty sure we won't be allowed back in because he doesn't want the guys exposed.
Sure.
And I get that. I also have the Croc Center that wants to move us into a different room again. And it just doesn't work. Celestine and I and one of the attorneys went out and we got this really nice room and now they want to take it away again. So we haven't gotten back to them on that issue, but I think, and that's 2 wards there also.
How many wards are with the fire department?
2.
How many? 2.
I do want to say though, the AMVETs on Irwin, they have offered their building.
And I have a question. So if UWGB, for example, which is in my district, if it's not open, then in August, then they're not going to let us use it. But when will they make that decision? That's probably something nobody knows when they'll make that decision.
Allison, do you have any information, just as a staff member?
Sure. I mean, I don't think we could guarantee a particular date, but the plan right now is to open campus back up on July 1st. As you know, there's a lot of uncertainty, but that's the plan that was announced today by the chancellor.
So does that affect the setup staff, the event planners out there? Do you know? Will they be back?
So the plan right now, at least, is that except for the intermittent furloughs that everyone will be taking, okay, that people who are more fully furloughed will be back as of July 1st. At least that's what they announced today. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty, but
okay.
Do we need to have the full, know what you call it, but full number of polling places can we plan for something with not 2, which wasn't enough, but with not, I don't know, what is the total number of polling places if you had every one of them that you used to have?
37 is
31.
31. Okay. So
places.
is there a way to have it somewhere in between?
Well, looking at that, well, let me just go back here because I just want to tell you the other ones that said no, because I would assume we should be kind of looking at those 2 then maybe that it'd be iffy. That was Atonement Lutheran Church, and they have 2 wards. Union Congregational has 1. GB has 3. Our Savior Lutheran Church has 1. Bethel Evangelical Lutheran Church has 1. St. Elizabeth Seton has 2, and Green Bay Botanical Gardens have 1. And then I brought up the Kroc Center, so that would actually be 15 wards that, if they stick with their decision that they made in April for August, those are out. There was 3 other places that made up 4 wards that were iffy, and that was the Salvation Army, First Presbyterian Church, and St. Paul United Methodist. So then if we start looking at combining, which I've been trying to do over the years, we have to look space-wise, to see how in the traffic flow. So even some of them that are doubled up, I'm not sure if social distancing wise that's gonna work either. Because then someone's gonna have to go in and start taping off 6 feet and all that stuff. Some of them wanted to know if we were gonna disinfect the place after. So I guess, we could start calling them, but again, to them, this is far out.
So there were 31 and there are 15 that you think are either iffy or have said no.
As far as the buildings, so we have 31 buildings. We have 47 wards total in Green Bay.
Right.
So the buildings themselves total, sorry, I got so many notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 buildings and maybe 3 that were iffy. So is anyone familiar with Christ of the Bay Lutheran Church on Laverne Drive?
I know where it is.
Okay. Well, the room itself, there's one huge ward in there and one real small one. They're crammed in there. So I don't think we could even have that as a place for 2. This is the problem I'm running into. And, nobody, even before this all happened, we had a really hard time trying to find polling locations.
Okay.
So are we just assuming that the social distancing and everything will be maintained? Is that what we're doing? Because what if it's not? What if we are in a better position? Because maybe that's why our polling locations don't want to give an answer, because things might be a little bit better or they might be a little worse.
But we don't know.
I think we have to plan for the worst, to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah.
We need to plan for that. Yes, let's plan so we have social distancing.
What was that?
I just said plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
One other thing I have a question on is we're talking about polling locations. Is there any way that we could probably or possibly promote absentee ballots so we don't actually have to worry about staffing as many people at these polling locations? Could we look into that?
Well, because the law is we would still have to have polling locations.
Correct.
We would still have to plan because we don't know who's going to show up and who isn't. That's another issue. Yeah.
But I mean, promoting absentee ballots more, because I've talked to the Hispanic community and the Somali community, and the issue that they're having is misunderstanding of what voting is. They're still learning kind of the basics. I help these communities become citizens. So just the language barrier is a major issue for them. So having things now come out to them in different languages, promoting absentee ballots. I know there's videos, things like that. If we can promote that and get people to request absentee ballots now, so that it's not like the last week, everyone's trying to request them and it's almost impossible to get them out. I've been talking to these communities and they're going, if we would know more about this, they would have requested. And I've been with COVO, we're trying to get people motivated to request absentee ballots now. And the other co-lead and I are getting together this week to promote that more. And yes, I like the idea that we're going to have other locations, but if we can say, hey, we don't know when this is going to go away, let's start looking into getting you an absentee ballot. How are different ways? Different things, how can we work with the clerks? How can we do this? Getting forms out to people, getting it translated into different languages if possible. That's going to be helpful because I know to register to vote is in Spanish and Hmong. I don't know if the absentee ballot forms are in Spanish or Hmong or Somali or anything else like that. So those are the concerns that the people I work with. If we can get them to all, get them registered and requesting an absentee ballot, then maybe we don't have to really worry about having, 31 locations for the 47 wards. That's an ideal world. I understand that. I'm shooting for the sky here, but that's what I'm kind of looking for is languages, videos, things like that to help get those communities to get more engaged and not stand in line.
And I think that's great. In 2017, Celestine and I worked on getting a insert into all water bills. I know that's not, renters and things like that probably, but we did the best we could with the budget we had. And don't take this wrong, because I don't mean it this way. By law, because of the census, we don't have to have it in different languages. So the state doesn't provide that to us. Okay. But I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that'd be fantastic. I just don't know how would we go about getting that in all the different languages. How would we do that?
I know that for the Hispanic and Somali community, I do have translators that will actually, I just give them a form and they translate it for me within a day. So with COVO, we are doing that.
Okay.
I do work directly with Comosa and I also work closely with Casalba. So that's one way. We do have some also people that are among speakers. So we are working with them.
Okay.
So there are other things that we are doing to help that out.
I mean, we'll put it on our website. That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, because the one thing that I know that they were concerned about is they didn't understand the ballot. They didn't understand how many people they could vote, not in the language they're used to. So one of the things that I was going to do is take a sample ballot and say, translate it for me. Let's put it in a format that they can see, and they can see vote 1, vote 3. They didn't understand that. They were kind of going, I like these people, and then they started voting for multiple people. And of course that ballot rejected. And they get frustrated because they don't know. So that's what I'm trying to bring to this group is the perspective of other communities that I'm working with.
Then we'd have to, there's obviously more than one ballot. That's okay.
Yep. But at least it gives them a sample. If I can say this is a sample ballot, this is what it's going to look like, and they can see what language it's in, that will definitely help out.
Okay.
Go ahead. Terry.
One of the things I would do is when Chris used to send out when early voting would start, her email always included the dates and where to go early vote. It would also include where to find the new registration forms to fill out and how to request absentee. I'm a board member in our neighborhood association, and our neighborhood has had a lot of complaints when it was moved to UWGB. So it was complaints of parking, walking too far, or bad weather. So I started sending out the information Chris would send to us through the city on nextdoor.com. But that only hits the people that are, set up on nextdoor.com. And because I live east, my maximum area that I can send to is the east side of Green Bay. Nextdoor.com doesn't let you send it out to the west side if you're on the east side. But I would send that out to every east side neighbor that was actually registered on that site, letting them know they could get their absentee ballots or vote early in hopes to, try and help alleviate things.
We do put that information though out on Facebook for the city Facebook webpage too, or whatever site too. And then we also always have it out on the webpage under the calendar and on our actual page as well. So you can just pull up the calendar and see every time and date when you can come in and early vote and that kind of stuff too. I mean, we try to get it out there.
So if I may, this is Celestine. I did speak to the post office about a program called Every Door Direct Mail. So when in 2017 we had essentially used the water bills to send out information about early in person and also absentee voting, that it was important, I think, to let people know it was only in English, but we didn't necessarily reach everyone. However, the program Every Door Direct Mail is actually fairly inexpensive. There'd be some things that we would need to do in order to essentially prepare the mail, but it would end up being about 16.5 cents a piece, and that would go to every door in the city of Green Bay. Now, if we would do that, it would be difficult for us to corral or to select households for whom English is not the first language. So it would all go out in English. Perhaps we could have a bilingual postcard, and the size of the postcard is actually very generous. It doesn't have to be I think it's 5x4 postcard. It can be a larger size. So that is a distinct possibility for us to get information out to residents, that there is the availability of absentee voting and how they can do that.
I think that's a real good idea.
Yes, Alder Dorf.
So, Celestine, are we going to, as council, are we going to need to get some funds over to the clerk's office? I mean, we need to maybe start keeping track of how much extra money is going to be needed. This was never planned.
So that's an excellent question. I'm not 100% sure. Of course, it would be very beneficial for the council to appropriate additional funds. However, there does seem to be some funds that will be allocated along with the old Help America Vote Act that is part of the CARES Act, that this would be funds for federal elections. And so August, of course, is a primary, not only for our state offices, but also for the federal offices, and obviously the same for November. So there's a possibility there. I just looked into it. And it's the state that applies for the funds, and I imagine we apply to the state.
Okay.
Alder Waring?
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. I thank everybody for volunteering to do this. Obviously, it was a disaster of an election, and I'm glad you're volunteering to help set things right, hopefully for the next one. I'm disappointed that we couldn't get any citizens on the committee who were affected. I asked multiple times and fell on deaf ears, but I appreciate everybody's help here. From what I can see, obviously it's broken down into two things, the absentee voting and the in-person voting. And the absentee voting, we've already had some good ideas. I think it would be good to hear back from Celestine or Chris Teskey on the status of federal state funds to see if we can do some kind of mail or make people aware of the absentee voting. I think that's a good idea, and to push people towards that. Obviously, being a presidential election, and probably a pretty big one, we're going to have a lot of voters. So I think we need to over-plan and not under-plan. So if we can keep as many of those polling locations open as possible, I think that's important. Chris, have we started looking at recruiting, actively recruiting people?
Well, I have 280 of the regular poll workers that I want to check on. And then I have the list that have volunteered since then that I'm going to be sending out information to.
Okay.
So the issue is not so much having people that want to work, it's if they want to work during the virus. That's our
right,
issue.
And that's what would be specifically we would need is, are you willing to work even if this virus were still here? Because we did have a number of people who wanted to volunteer, even though there was a virus, and they were turned away. So if we have people willing to volunteer and they know the risk, we should be accepting them.
Correct, and I have the list. I'm going to send out information to them.
All right.
I just don't know about, I sent them emails all already saying, if everything's back to normal, we will have training in July. If not, then I will set up something for them to do it on the computer and then send them our packet.
So we don't know yet how many of those, whatever number you had mentioned, are willing to work during a pandemic. We're not sure on that yet.
Not yet. We just finished the April 7th election.
Hi, yeah, I'm in the Zoom meeting right
Okay, I don't know if you need extra help, let us know, but that's something we need to get on top of is to make sure we have plenty of people, so that if half the people or 2/3 or 3/4 want to cut out, we have a group of people who are willing to staff the election no matter what. I think that's very important.
The problem is, Alder Weary, is they all had agreed to work. And then I asked them, will you work for April knowing that that virus is coming? They all said yes. Well, then when the news started picking up, saying how bad it was, that's when they started, because I had a full crew going. And then they started. I had some cancel the day before. So, I mean, that's the issue with having people volunteer. They, I don't want to sound, but if they get up in the morning, I've had some get up in the morning, they just don't feel like coming and they don't show up. So, and then there's some that are so dedicated and some that feel so bad they didn't work. So there's no guarantee no matter who I have. It's not that I wasn't prepared. They were all set to go. And then they started dropping out, which can happen to anybody. Yes, we are actively getting people signed up.
So actively, are we recruiting in social media or in the public?
It's always on our website with the application and the job description.
Well, yeah, it's always there. I understand it's always there, but I think we should be going over and above and doing more. I don't want to run short on people again. I mean, Terry, you did a wonderful job at East. I commend you for the crew that we had and then the people that were there. You ran around like a chicken with your head cut off, but you kept it all in line. You did a great job. I think we need to have more. Keep pushing for more.
Well, how would you do it, Alder Weary?
Social media, maybe, work with the news agencies.
I know when I called the list that I was given, Chris had a nice list. And I called them and in one round, 3 people dropped right off. And then the next thing I called the lady, she says, well, you know what? I don't think I want to. It just kept dwindling.
I kind of
that's like ahead of time, we'll know going in.
I also wonder if these questions aren't kind of interspersed, right? Because some of the questions people might have is, what's the polling place going to look like? How much space is there going to be? Like, how is the election actually going to be conducted? is there any masks or other PPE provided to me? So I don't know that we can disentangle these questions, even though they're both really important.
One thing I think that that we might want to sort of focus on is if we put updated calls for poll workers down now on social media, your websites, we can also link those to other entities that we're all involved with. And if we put the call out for poll workers, additional poll workers, right? So if we normally have 280, let's try to get 500, right? Of course, there will be volunteers who say the day of that they don't want to do it. But if we advertise now, we are definitely going to need poll workers, and we'll have a training in July, or perhaps maybe we could even do it in June. That would give us a sense of how many people we have who are interested. Folks who are volunteering now, I think, have a better sense of what they might encounter in August and even November. So if they're volunteering, they do the training, they're prepared. But I do think that, putting the call out on social media, on the city website, on the mayor's website, not just website, but Facebook, and having an easy link for them to go to and sign up now, even though it seems like a long time till the election, I think would be one place to start to try to get more volunteers who kind of know what may be facing them in August.
Are we going to have them as alternates then? Are we going to say that maybe they'd be alternates and they'd be on call? Or how are we going to do that?
I don't know how many alternates you can have, but I think I would have as many people who would volunteer, more than you need. Make sure they have the training, and that way, if you do need them, you can, in August, half of the poll workers have a very large base of alternate poll workers that you could use. So I don't know exactly what you would call them, but either poll workers, yes, you have a ward, or you're an alternate, but we would have double the amount. If we could get double the volunteers, let's do it.
And then Allison, I think you made a really good point, because at the time for April, we didn't have any idea of what supplies we were going to have other than disinfecting wipes and spray. Now, at least we have shields. We have the 6 shields that were built in that last week, and we will have more. So that, that's a draw for people to work now. And we had masks from the state. We also didn't have hand sanitizer, and we got that too. I'm not sure if what is left we can use. We might have to throw that away, because I heard that the ones that are in the vodka bottles ferment, and if you use too much of it, you can get a buzz.
Bring it on.
I think
We'll have.
Go ahead, too.
I think
We'll
one
have happy
of the things
voters.
that could help for just keeping the poll workers that you do have is if we can keep open our original locations.
I know for you, yeah.
That would be, I think, a saving grace. A lot of people felt more comfortable just being at their own location, knowing how many will come through, and they knew how to protect themselves at that location, even if we weren't providing anything. My whole crew and Peggy's whole crew backed out as soon as they knew they couldn't stay at our regular location.
Right.
So I think if we can maintain that, I think we would have a big saving grace on some employees.
Mm-hmm. I agree, because there was no guarantee that everyone was going to stay together as their group.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus
Kind of
it's just
piggybacking on
easier
that, Chris. So,
to,
yeah, if you can keep all 31 places open or different, I mean, it'll spread all the voters out around the city. So you're not going to have them so compacted and worry about social distancing. They're going to be spread out amongst all those polling places. Have we looked at, I know a couple cities, I think, I don't know if it was down in the valley, used an empty go. We have a couple of those sitting around. Any other empty buildings? Let's, think outside the box. Have we been doing that at all?
To think outside the box is what the mayor did with the gyms at the high school, which I thought was great. the keeping the 31 places open, again, not all of them wanted to be open.
I'm thinking forward.
Spreading
Yeah,
it out.
I'm thinking forward, Chris, not back. I'm saying let's keep 31 open. I don't care where they are. Let's have all 31, but let's find new places if they're, don't want to host it. That's fine.
Well, it's also very important to make sure that a polling location is located in a central place in wards. So it can't just be anywhere. And it also has to be handicap accessible. So there are a number of constraints in order to select a polling location. I think the fact that, the AMVETs on Irwin have offered their place, I think that's important. And also just to capture some things that others are saying, the idea that, as Terry is saying, that, poll workers like to be familiar with the space that they're in. And so to the extent that we can keep polling locations that will allow the social distancing, that will also encourage poll workers to stay, I think that's important. I also think it's very important for us to better understand what PPE we can guarantee to poll workers. Masks, gloves, certainly hand sanitizer, but very importantly, access to actual soap and water. Also, the guards, our Parks Department made a valiant effort at the April 7th election to make sneeze guards. We are actually ordering some for City Hall. So I think all of those things really go, as Allison had said, as Terry had said, as Susan has said, these all things, they go together as a whole. So I think it would be great if we could indeed identify 31 locations that will commit, that will allow social distancing, that will be comfortable for the poll workers. I think that certainly is a goal. We also have to have a goal of reaching all of our residents to let them know that they can vote absentee.
Can I say something? Yeah. So that's another thing. The sneeze guards, I figured if we keep all 31 places open and to cover the poll workers that are at the books and registration, it's going to cost another $43,000 to make those sneeze guards through the park department.
Let's do it.
I'm sorry.
Let's do it.
And then I just want to throw something else out there, because I know that out in the world of attorneys, I guess they are talking about sending absentee applications to every registered voter. I just want to read you something from Kelly Michaels in Brookfield, and they have, well, like half of what we do. And I totally agree with what she's saying with this. She said, I would not be in favor of requiring this for all municipalities, but I'm fine with those who want to do this. I have over 28,000 electors. It is not the sending out of the form, which is already readily available and not even required in order to obtain a ballot. It is the manual data entry side of promoting a paper process, along with all the crazy things residents will think I am requiring them to do in order to vote. I'm in favor of promoting and improving the My Vote system to allow an improved automated process, as most residents are willing and able to request a ballot and upload the POI online. So for all others, an email or written note are fine. So that would be a huge issue for us if everyone turned in paper form. I guess I hope we could promote My Vote.
I thought that's what we were discussing in terms of encouraging the absentee, and I would say absentee voting or early voting, like making voters aware that there's early voting, so they could, if they want to do it in person, they could do it, but they could do it early. And making sure that and if we could increase those hours, that would be great. I don't know if that, we should add that as something that we could look at. But I think My Vote, it is, for some people, it's very, very easy to follow and click on and attach your POI, as you call it. But for others who are not as it's not as easy to want to obtain internet access, or perhaps to understand that you have to send in a proof of residency, it becomes very difficult. But I think if, in terms of maybe using social media or free access, I would say, free ways of advertising, we could help explain to citizens, this is how you do it. You go to My Vote, it's very simple. You can even use your phone. And for people who could do it, that it makes it easy. So I think there are, ways that we could encourage that would increase absentee voting. But I think we should also make it very clear and so folks could do early voting as well, because I think all of these wheels of the voting process should be, we should think about for this committee: absentee voting, early voting, in-person voting, try to have as many polls as we possibly can open with as many poll workers as we can. Try to have every wheel of the voting process working well, so everybody, however they want to vote, they can figure out how to do it.
Right. As far as in-person early voting, people have to be certified in the WIS vote system then. So I just can't put poll workers out there. So that is about 5.5 hours of training. So we would need quite a bit. We did look into UWGB having they wanted it out there. But we also have to remember that express votes have to go out there then. Any in-person early voting has to be set up like a polling location. So those machines are being worked on to make sure that they work for election day. We can't find places, for one thing, but again, like GB, we said, well, we could do it if you purchase an express vote, but we own it. They can't own that machine. So there are some roadblocks in that. We also looked into, and keep in mind, if we don't have it just at City Hall, and we did extend hours, it just with the coronavirus, we couldn't do it. We had nights and some Saturdays. If you start spreading out early, we have to have 47 ballot styles at each place. And those have to come back each night. And I'm not discouraging this. I'm just telling you all that entails. I could get my notes out for what I did for UWGB to tell them how that all works. Because everything has to come back at the end of the night, then it goes back, because if we don't know who has access to a locked closet door, we can't do that. And the city doesn't have places that we own. We don't have community centers. We don't have, we thought maybe the West Side Garage, and that wouldn't work. So just keep those things in mind too. Because we've thought of all this, it's just that there's no place to go. There was, and another thing I wanted to bring up, I know it's kind of off track, but I talked to the mayor about a high-speed tabulator at Central Count, because I am really worried that in November we are going to have so many ballots and we only have 5 DS200s at Central Count. So I reached out to ES&S, and I know they're very expensive to rent, very expensive to buy, but the mayor said, see what they say. Well, I'm not getting a response. From the one guy, he said, I'm going to give this to the salesman, just so you know, there's limited quantity because people are scarfing them up. So I don't know if we'd be able to get that either. So, when people would complain maybe on election night that the results aren't in right away, we might not be able to get all those processed, depending on how many people absentee vote. So I want to throw that out there too. So, we've thought of all these things and we came up against roadblocks, and I'm hoping you guys can, if you have connections, to find places for us to do things, polling locations, whatever, that would be fantastic. But it's really a struggle. People don't want us in their buildings anymore. People don't want to vote in churches. The freedom of religion, every once in a while they call me. I don't want to vote, we don't want to vote in a church. So just keep that in mind. We tried East Town Mall. But then that went into receivership. So we were afraid we'd have to pull out, before an election. And then how do you tell the people? Because you're not supposed to, there's laws on that also, that you have to do it so many days out. So I don't want to sound negative to anyone. I just want you to know the things that we run up against.
Terry, did you have something?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I just
You
kind
went
of,
up, so.
thinking, trying to figure, I really liked, after working at East, even though it was so chaotic, the gym there was a great setup. If we had to do it there again, I would easily have like 6 check-in tables, and divvy up my people that way. I really liked that the entrance was on one side for us, the exit was out the other side. We really could have divvied it up there, but at some point, hopefully school's back in session for all these kids. They won't be in August if, school wouldn't be going yet. I mean, so that could be a help if we really had to go back to what happened. But I could make it work at East, and I think I could get some people in there, and it would go all right, and probably not be as bad as this last one.
I just want to clarify though, Celestine, that the mayor didn't want too many people. So has he changed his mind on this?
Well, I think that, it's all going to be dictated by what our world literally looks like with this virus come August and then come November. Because it's very important to keep people safe, and not everyone is as invested in protective practices as they should be. Every individual. So then it's important for us to create a voting location that better encourages residents to engage in those protective practices as they come to vote. Terry, I really appreciate it. Karen, I saw you had your hand up too. I really appreciate what you're saying to offer what it was like to vote at East High School and how open it was. Yeah, very good. Hopefully that answers your question, Chris.
I was agreeing with Terry. West High, if we would have had just a little bit smoother system, we started out with the 2 books, then we moved to 4. If we could have been like 6 or 8, more like, and then made it more, and then with the security, I didn't think it was that bad either. We had John was there to help with them. We had a set guy there. That was helpful. I didn't have to worry. If something goes wrong, he's there. And the security guys were around. But if we just would have had more, and then maybe the books, the system was okay with the bags and then grabbing the books, but maybe a little bit more streamlined to make it go faster. And it really, for what we were working with, I thought it was okay. And I had a lot of people, they came up and they said, thank you for working, and they were happy to vote. They weren't, there's always that complainer or two, but they were glad they were given the opportunity to vote. And I think the problem with the absentees was a little bit of a tie-up. If people were to be more aware of getting their absentee ballots sooner, then the people with the absentee ballots wouldn't have been going through.
Right. And they
Yeah, I just wanted to let Terry and Karen, both of you, know that with everything you had to go through that day, thank you very much. And also, you guys balanced.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Yay! Wonderful.
It all came out. So, I mean, and actually with everyone who helped at City Hall too, all the, we balanced. That's all I can say. Even with, we had close to 12,000 absentee ballots that we processed. We balanced.
Kim,
Also,
why don't you just, so I know that Terry and Karen were very excited. Why don't you tell the members of the public and some other members of the committee what it means to be balanced for an election?
Oh my gosh. I usually, that's what I was afraid. One of my poll workers did work with us. And she says, Karen, how are, and usually I'm jumping up and checking the numbers and back and forth. And this time we just had to go with what we had and mark on the sheet. But it seemed to be going smooth, and we had one backup, and I recreated the ballot, so it was okay. And I just had to pray that it balanced. That's all I could do.
Yeah, you guys did great, just great. And if I can just say too that the plan that the mayor had, he planned, Terry, exactly what you said was so great is what he planned. Come in a door, go out another door, so that people weren't passing each other. I mean, that was all his intent. And his intent was to keep everyone safe. And I'm sorry, but in my mind, I just felt like everything went well. It was unfortunate the people that could not get an absentee ballot on time, but that to me was higher up the government chain. So, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, I had a great crew. I never worked with any of them that were there, and I tell you, we did really well together, and had a couple other comments from some of them too. One of the guys that was quiet all day, and he said, I've been doing elections for years, and he said, you're the best crew I've ever worked with. And I took that as a huge compliment.
Yeah. A good crew. I mean, I never met these people before, and I mean, like I was calling them and who are you? And I thought, oh dear, what am I getting myself into here? But they were very nice. It was fun. They worked very hard.
I had hard workers.
So they're saying then that works, that concept works. I've said even before this, if I could have, what do they call those? Pole barns. If I could have 4 pole barns in the city of Green Bay, we'd be good. It would be wonderful. I've talked about Lambeau Field, seeing if we could use the lobby, the atrium. The county clerk was all for that, but people weren't happy with that. But I thought parking's there, ADA accessibility, we could line up different tables and get people in, going through with the machines at the end of each, row. If you look at a lot of other municipalities, they have a lot of wards in one area. That's how they do it. And it's a lot easier to administer an election that way. A lot easier. So just my thought, I totally agree with Terry. It'd be nice, if we had the 4 gyms in August, but, we know we won't have that in November, but that does work well.
Allison?
Yeah, I guess I'd start with 2 things when I've been holding it. So I also really appreciate the work of folks at the polling places. I live really close to West High School, so I went over and talked to some people who were waiting in line. I guess even if it's right that this system could work really well because of the experience people had and because of the frustration around the election, I feel like it's difficult to say, oh, we're doing this again the same way, even if with more support, you could do it better, if that makes sense. So I guess I'm a little worried that might kind of depress the vote or otherwise lead to people feeling uncertain about the elections. But I don't know. I have to think more about that. I'm just thinking with the frustration that people are feeling, is there a need for there to be some kind of plan that we're having? And then my other piece of that is I was curious for people who ran the elections to hear more about the way that drive-up voting worked here, because I know some municipalities are thinking about having a more intensive commitment to drive-up voting. I don't know if that's just completely unfeasible for us. I know it seemed like it was kind of complicated this time because you're trying to do it quickly, but I'd love to hear more from the experts about how that worked or if it could be a piece of the solution for the next elections.
I did reach out to the WEC on that because as far as curbside voting went, people were expecting drive-through voting is what they were looking for.
There was confusion on that, yeah.
So I did talk to Riley Willman at the WEC because I wanted to get a feel for, okay, how does that work? And because what I was seeing on TV didn't jive with how our curbside voting was as far as 2 people going to the car. So I did look into this, and is it okay if I read this, what he said?
Yeah.
He said, correct. The curbside voting procedure has stayed the same and is open to any voter who is unable to enter the polling place. Voters don't have to make an appointment to vote curbside, but they certainly can call the clerk's office, letting them know roughly when they will be going to the polls, or asking the clerk what would be a good time on election day for them to come and vote. So this is a little different than smaller municipalities. So we would have to give them a number at each polling location, which doesn't work well. How a lot of municipalities do it is normally when you have someone curbside voting, someone is driving them there, and that person would go in, stand in line, and then when they got to the front, say, I have someone in the car that needs to vote, and then 2 people go out. So if there's, for instance, if there'd only be 3 people at a polling location, that would stop all voting in the polling location for 2 people to go out and do that. So again, if we, would get 2 extra people, but I want to just tell you that's more money again, which some say money doesn't matter. So he said, that being said, they still do not need an appointment to vote curbside and can simply show up at the polls whenever they are open and request to vote curbside. When it comes to drive-through voting, the curbside requirement of having 2 inspectors be there to greet the voter and administer the ballot are not required because your whole polling place is the drive-through. You would still need to have 2 people manning the poll book just like you normally do in a regular polling place. But other than that, it can be just 1 inspector who gives the voter the ballot, checks the photo ID, and assists the voter if necessary. The difference between curbside and drive-through voting is that curbside is happening alongside a regular polling place. Drive-through voting is entirely replacing the regular polling place, and your inspectors would have to follow the procedures that they normally would in a regular polling place. So that would mean then that if we did drive-through at all the polling locations, we would need tents. But again, Celestine and I and Kim, we talked about this. If it'd be like the other day when we had those winds, like Celestine said, the fire department would tell us to take them down. And I can't, unless we got heaters in the tents for November, I don't know how that would work. I think it's a cool idea. I mean, kind of like they're doing at the Resch where they're driving through for the testing. If we had a building we could drive through, I mean, that'd be really cool, So that's what that is. But we would still, with the drive-through voting, we still have to have that express vote somewhere inside for them to be able to get out and go and use that if they wanted to. For the hearing, anyone can use it, but for hearing impaired or visual. So.
I have a question too about that. I mean, in my years, people come in, they're going to vote. Okay. Oh, I'm not registered. Well, then where do we have to stop and then do that process on a drive-through?
You have to really set it up so that with signs saying, if you are not registered, you go this way. And then they'd have to.
They think they are and they're not. And,
I know, unless, yeah. So there's a lot to that. We'd have to maybe have a person there standing there to look up somebody with a computer to see, because otherwise it'd be, 47 poll books.
Yeah.
So there's, again, not trying to be negative. I just want to throw this out there, and then you guys take and whatever ideas you can come up with. And Kim, can you think of anything else that I missed?
I apologize. My Zoom was like freezing and I could only hear chunks, and then it disappeared, and then you guys reappeared and I caught the tail end of it. So I have no clue what you were even talking about.
Okay. Thanks a lot. No, just kidding.
Sorry. I don't know what happened. Barb?
I just wonder if it's really good to brainstorm, and we've thrown out lots and lots and lots of ideas. I wonder if we should start kind of focusing or narrowing down the scope. Even if we had, and I understand there's, of the 31, there's a number that said we're not going to do it anymore. Can we get 10 on each side of the river? Is that, or is one side of the river bigger than the other? I don't know. I don't know in my imagination. Are there more on one side than the other side?
No, I looked at the split. It's well,
It's pretty
I
close.
wasn't counting UWGB in because they had all gone home. So without GB, it was a pretty fair split using the river.
Right, and we don't know if those students will be back or not. We don't know. That is a huge number that would be going through UWGB. But we've had that. That happens at that polling place. It takes longer. And more people started doing absentee balloting, and it was under control. It's been under control ever since that one really long night. But do you think we should just kind of pick some things that we could really focus on?
Sure.
Of all these great ideas, what are the realistic things?
Chair. So
Or are we done brainstorming?
Alder Weary, your hand.
Yep, thanks, Chair Smith. I was thinking along the same lines, Barb, if we could get maybe some, for whenever we meet next, if it's weekly or bi-weekly or whatever it might be, some action points or some information points. I know there's some things I'll be looking for every meeting, just as we were talking here. The first would be kind of an ongoing list of committed polling locations and then new location ideas. So that every week you can say, hey, we've got 5, hey, we've got 12, we've got 15, and we're looking at these 5. If we could kind of talk about that every week. And then the status of poll workers would be the next one. How many people are back and how many would be committed to being a backup and what that process would look like. And then the next would be those PPE supplies. What would it cost to supply whatever we need for, let's say 31 locations or whatever it would be? What's that dollar figure? What would that look like? What do we need and what's the dollar figure? And then recruit that social media campaign. Get the neighborhood associations involved. They're a great source to disseminate information. A lot of them have newsletters coming out soon. And we can all help in our own social media worlds to share links as well. And then the status of the federal funding, how much and what can it be used for? Those are just some of the things off the top of my head that if we can kind of touch on every week, it would help. And I'm sure there's a lot of other things that we can look at too, but those are the things I'd be asking about. I'd be open to, I just throwing it out there, spitballing.
I would just add early voting location and hours.
Yeah. I missed
That's
that.
something I had written down too.
I missed that
And really, I get that money is a concern, but I believe in Alder Weary are very committed to supplying what is needed. We have money in the contingency fund right now. I know it's just May. We've only spent like 6,000 of the 150,000. Okay, so I know there's some money there, but I think we don't want to go crazy, but we can't let that be a barrier to having a good voting experience. So you need to ask us for help on that. And,
I would agree.
And we will advocate for money.
Yes.
The only, and I haven't been worried about money because I was told I didn't have to, but just to throw this out there, some of those supplies aren't even available. You can't even get them.
Like what? Like what can't you get?
Well, when I went to buy supplies, there wasn't any hand sanitizer, period.
That was then. That was then. Right.
But now I understand there isn't, I don't know, can you go out and buy masks now? Good masks? I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not sure.
I ordered 50 today for our household. I've ordered 50 today for our household of good masks. I'm just letting you know he's on this call. And it was like $39 or something. But I just thought, well, I think we really we've got some homemade ones, but let's get some masks. It seems like they're back out there now. So, I think little by little we could start accumulating PPE.
Okay,
Get
but
that
I don't
list
want to,
together of
I
what
don't
we
wanna-
need, get that list,
Right,
and then
you don't
start
want-
getting it.
so,
don't want-
and then I just want to clarify, because from my understanding, when I talked to a physician before it came, the N95 mask was the best mask. So if we're going to tell them masks, are we just telling them, because some asked, some wanted the N95s. So are we just going to say we're surgical masks? Are we, so I just want to clarify that. And then I totally get what you're saying, Alder Weary, about polling locations and poll workers. But I lived through what happened. Everything was set up. So I'm just curious, because we're supposed to be looking at worst case scenario. What happens if we get 10 on each side, which would be fantastic? But again, we have to make sure we can fit the wards in. Then what happens if it did get worse? And all of a sudden these places say, what is our backup plan then?
I think the backup plan was, let's say you need, I'm just going to pick a number, 200 poll workers. Then you have a list of another 200 who are willing to come in. And then the third option would be, we need to contact the governor again, or the state, and see if those National Guardsmen are also going to be available to make sure they have the right training enough in advance. That could be the third option. But have a large backup. I mean,
but we would need,
enough places,
we'd need to know that now if the National Guard would be available, not 2 days before.
Right. We need to know at least in advance, yes.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we knew, I mean, in that instance, April 1st, we knew we had extra help, right? And, and the election was on the 7th. So we knew 6 days ahead.
I didn't know that, Alder Weary. I didn't know that.
Did Celestine not share that with you?
I thought we were all open about everything, but
Well,
my
apparently
email.
she did not share it with you.
Okay,
Because
so
the-
that is
Hold on.
inaccurate. Thank you.
Hold on.
That is
Hold on.
inaccurate.
The Wisconsin Election Commission called in on April 1st and confirmed they had 60 extra people to help. And we agreed to that.
And
But
during that conversation, which obviously you were not made aware, they said that all movement with the National Guard would go through the county. The county contacted us April 6th.
But we knew April 1st there were 60 people, so.
Which we had discussed.
Part of that also, and I'm gonna bring this up, this needs to be another bullet point, our communication is horrible. Within City Hall and with the county and the state. From all the research I've done, there've been attempts by the state and by the county to reach City Hall. They couldn't get through, the phones were busy, the doors were locked, they couldn't reach anyone. And then even within City Hall, we're finding out, Chris, you didn't know about this on April 1st, and the agreement with the high schools was signed on April 1st, but you didn't sign it till April 3rd. So we need better communication. Do we need special phone lines that people can call in from the county or state? We need to look at that as well. That was
Allison, sorry. Clerk Teske.
So my other thing is, when we ask these people, this is my concern, because I've done a lot of recruiting people for, I used to work for the Packers for ticket taking and for ushering. So when you are calling these people in, and we're going to make them alternates, this is one of my biggest pet peeves is we're going to tell them to hold that day, possibly have to take vacation, and then not be called. Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
We have to be okay with it. Can we give them a stipend? I mean,
Well,
can we do that?
exactly.
Because
Exactly.
I think that might be an okay thing to do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Alder,
Yeah.
so we can think of some fair sort of stipend that they may get for doing that. And the other thing about the PPE, about the masks, I think last time it was unusual. People weren't wearing masks yet, right? Now, everywhere you go, people are wearing masks. We will ask the voters to come in with their masks on.
That's a great idea.
I like that
We
idea.
have some additional less expensive. But the mask that I wear is not to protect me, it's to protect you. That's what the idea is. If I'm sick, I'm protecting you by wearing a mask, right? So no matter what mask they have on, it won't keep all the germs away from them, but we'll have the barrier set up. I saw how the people look, and I think Alder was in there. I mean, they were covered, right, head to toe. They had PPE on, right? No, some people had yellow suits. No? Now, I mean,
No.
the poll workers, who was that then?
Oh,
No.
I thought
Well, we
you
could, no, I thought some of the poll workers did have some
I think that was
gloves.
another city.
They were
They had
what?
gloves.
They had
That was another
gloves.
city.
That
And
was
they had
another
masks.
city. Okay,
Yeah, they
gloves
were.
and masks. Would they feel better if they had scrubs or, you know, the PPE on? Would that make them feel more secure? No, it wouldn't, Terry? That would make you.
No,
okay, but-
I wouldn't want it. I was happy with I made masks and I brought masks along for my people. And
Okay.
I wore a mask and I wore rubber gloves all day and wiped down tables as often as I could.
Right. You got other people with their hands up, so I'll stop talking.
Karen?
I just want to make a comment about the, we have 200 and some poll workers, and they're talking about having subs or alternates. That's nice, but there's nothing worse than well, now what do you want me to do? I don't know how to do that. There's a valuable poll worker that's trained. These people that step forward to work, this eight people I had or 10 people, they were trained poll workers.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like, what do I do? So if you get these alternates, and first of all, there's something about they're not going to take ownership of the day. Well, they're not going to call me anyways. I'm just an alternate. That's what I think.
Alderman Waring?
Oh, no.
Sorry.
I'm-
Allison? I think you're still on mute.
So I agree. We've got a really good list of topics that we need to pursue, and I don't think we're going to be able to fully solve them today. So thinking about a timeline, I think will help us kind of categorize. I'd like to also put on the list some of the equity issues that H raised earlier when we're thinking about civic engagement of voters and kind of how we're making sure people have confidence in our democracy, which is super important to me. And then the second thing I would say is I understand and had myself and some friends who had a lot of frustrations with this election. But if I think about the spring, at UWGB, our transition to online learning, it was happening in a crisis. And so I think while we should learn from that experience, I hope we can also recognize that everyone did the best they could with the situation that we were faced with. So I don't know, as much as we can be compassionate to ourselves and each other about the hard work of the spring under really terrible circumstances, I think that'll help. So for me, having kind of a set of goals and timelines, I think, and this is my first ad hoc committee, I'm actually not even totally sure what our aim is at the end. Are we hoping that we have a list of recommendations, or what is, what do we get to at the end? And maybe Susan has a sense of that.
I don't, since this is mine too, first time too, but what I would suggest is I have listed about 10 or 11 different items, and I don't want to cut off discussion if there are any other items, but 10 or 11, perhaps we could group those into 3 or 4 or 5 categories. I don't know if people want, and the alders may be able to give us a little direction on this, if you want us to go back to a particular committee and give recommendations on what we think should be done. If you want subcommittees of this group to, with some of these, these items that we've come up with, if you want us to give recommendations to the full city council, common council on, and yes, you need money for X, Y, and Z, so please, supply money. I'm assuming that you, the alders on this call, would do that based on our recommendation, but maybe a little guidance from the two of you on sort of what you would like in terms of recommendations or help or assistance.
That's you, Barb. No.
That's you, Alder Weary.
I know. No, I think the council would appreciate maybe some updates. I don't know how often, but just that we're working on it. And then if we run into some pinch points, some areas that are difficult that we might need council help with, that's when we could go to them and say, hey, we've got a problem that we need the full council to help move a mountain or something.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we think things are going where we want, I don't know if we really need council's help, but if we run into something that we can't solve and staff can't solve without council, that's when we jump in and say, hey, we need help.
Okay. Alder Dorf?
I think a lot of it really falls on staff. It falls on Chris Teskey and it falls on Kim and possibly Celestine and whoever else you guys can get to help, but to pin down some locations and explain that it's not early. If that's a pushback you're getting, it's not early, that you need to report out to count and get going on the list, but also tell us, what you're encountering, what your needs are. I think we might have to meet more frequently at the beginning here and maybe do later on, and it is weekly, and then it goes to every other week. Because I think it sounds like there's so much to be done. And I do think it's going to be better only because it was a crisis. The building was on fire. It was on fire. It was practically burned down by the time we started. Now, there's some flames flickering around, but we're we know that there's what to expect. We're getting more used to this. We know we're going to need masks. We're going to need hand sanitizer. We can start earlier, getting some of this stuff. And we know that that people are getting more accustomed. They've gone out to the grocery.
Oh,
Barb's frozen.
Barb, you just froze.
She does this. It's actually normal. She'll freeze. That's a normal.
Well, can I say something?
Yes, go ahead. We're waiting for Barb. Hopefully she knows that she has to click back in or refresh.
Our number one thing right now is to get the information out to the people, like H. Smet said. People can do it at the beginning of the year. They shouldn't be waiting till the last minute. So let's get them, the information to them for August and November, and let them know that. Oh, she said the internet went out. Let's let them know they can do it now for the rest of the year. Then they don't have to monkey between August and November. That's our main thing right now, because
I think that's a very good idea.
yeah, we have about 700 that came in already, and so now that we're done with the April 7th election, it was closed out yesterday. We're going to start moving forward on getting, that in line. So, and then if you go by H, is that what you go by?
Yes.
Okay. So, if we could get assistance from you to get the, all those other communities. I've tried to get, I have one person that speaks Spanish, but I've tried to get people that have called that said, I want to be a poll worker and, I can speak this language. I'm like, great, and then I don't hear from them again. So we could use more of that even. But that's the main thing right now, is to get the word out. The other thing to the alders for money, if we are going, to me, it sounds like no matter what happens, whether we have locations, 31 locations, or just a few, you want separate tables for each ward. Then we need $43,000 right away, so Park and Rec can start making those shields. To me, those are the two biggest things right now. I can send out an email on Monday. Some people don't have email, but and then I can have someone call the poll workers that we have and see who's going to work. Again, hopefully they'll answer me when I say, like, right now, would you work? I can do that, and I'm going to get that information. But the issue with getting new people on board is we have to see for the I-9 form, we have to see documentation in person. So I will work with HR on that to see if they can come up with a way, since City Hall isn't open to the public, of doing that.
Chair,
And then,
and
the polling locations, Celestine, I don't know if you want me to go back and do that, or the mayor mentioned Terry and Jared.
Yes, I think, they've already established some relationships with those. So
Okay.
yeah, let's get that on the list of things to do.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Waring, go ahead. My internet is in and out too. I feel like we're getting jinxed here.
thank you, Chairman. Chris or Celestine, could someone in staff maybe draft something for public release that you can forward to us, and then we can share it wherever about the things we need to make people aware of, rather than us each craft our own little thing? Can we just pass something on from you?
Do you mean in regards to absentee voting or?
Yep, whatever it might be. And if there's something there, point us to it. I mean, I can easily craft it, but I'd rather forward something. Hey, heads up from the city, boom.
Can somebody let Barb in?
Yes.
You have to
Oh,
let
yes, I
Barb
will.
in?
Oh, Kim, can you let Barb in?
Sure.
I'm
I think
Do
I
we
know.
really
I
want
have
Barb
to-
back? Well, let's first take a vote. Do we really want Barb back?
Did it work?
Yes, she's connected.
Oh, there she is.
There she
Okay.
is.
There she is.
So, I mean, I think that, hi, Barb, Alder. And so I think it depends on what it is that the committee is looking for. Is this something for absentee voting? Then I think we need to take a deeper look at that and also explore every door direct mail. Is this something recruiting poll workers? Because what I have is locations, poll workers, recruitment, federal funding. So, I mean, if it's recruiting poll workers, then, because poll workers need to be trained, then that is something I think speaking with one voice makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so too. And it would, but I think we could then forward it as Alderman Wary said, he can put it on his Facebook, Alder Dorff could put it on her Facebook, and we can get, and I think people volunteering now, I know they would be new poll workers, but they would at least be trained prior to the election. And they know going into it, things could be as bad as they are right now, or they could be worse.
Correct.
So
Yes.
I think it's not a bad idea to try to recruit more poll workers now.
And I agree, Chair, that we would need to recruit and also just go back to the poll workers we have right now with the understanding that we are still in the middle of a pandemic and may be in that same situation in November.
But then can we find out if we're doing that stipend? If they're, if we're asking them to take a day of vacation and then we don't use them.
Sure. Like what could we give them as what happens if you are called for jury duty and then you're not selected? You're still
Correct.
given a stipend. So, Chris, can you talk to Diana about that?
Sure.
I don't know that would be something for HAVA for us to fund us. When I looked at the federal funding, which goes to the state, that seems much more along the lines of cough guards and hand sanitizer and that kind of thing, reimbursing
Okay.
us for that. So chat with Diana.
Sure.
And this has been raised, but in terms of timing, how frequently do we want to meet now? Say for the next month.
I'm sorry, Chair, so that is kind of another agenda item. That's the next one. So I just may I suggest that you recap what are the to-do items for this agenda item and then move on to the next one, which is deadlines and meeting dates.
Okay, so here's what I have, and add to it or correct me if I'm wrong. But number one, absentee and early voting and all the different things we've talked about those. Number two, poll workers, communications with the ones we have and recruiting new ones. Polling stations, an update on what we have, how many we have as of today, and are there places where we could get additional polling stations? What number do we have? This is all polling stations. Every door direct mail. Can we send out, and do we have the money to send out a direct mail to everyone? And that would go, I guess, with absentee voting and early voting. PPE and cleaning supplies. How much do we have? How much will we need? What amount of money will need to be allocated towards that? Dollars, early voting. A mention of ES&S tabulation, whether or not you'll need one more of those or additional ones. So an update on that. Drive-up voting and curbside voting. So that's the long list. And then I had it narrowed down to an ongoing list of polling places, status of, or this was, I believe, Alderman Ware's status of poll workers, PPE costs, recruitment, early absentee, and federal monies. So that are the two, longer list and shorter. Anything else?
Well, I just want to clarify something. If we're putting something out there for early voting, absentee voting, now fine. Early voting, we don't have, are you looking at other locations? Are you looking just at City Hall? Are you looking at maybe just drive-through that we put a tent up in the parking lot? Because if we want people to early vote, do we put on that postcard, go to this website to see when early voting is going to occur and where? Because we don't know that yet, because we should get that information out now for absentees.
For absentees, right. Right.
But we want to get, I think, as much bang for our buck on that postcard.
On the postcard, could we also ask for volunteers for poll workers too? People could start thinking about it.
I was thinking about that also.
Why don't we stick with early voting at City Hall? Because that's the only thing we have experience with right now, right? We talked about other places, but let's just stick with what we've got experience with. And, we could figure that out from there and maybe expand the hours at City Hall, whatever.
The mayor liked the drive-through. I don't know, Celestine, if he's talked any more about the drive-through.
He has talked about that. Of course, we need to find a place in order to do that. Because obviously, while curbside voting is important for people who want to vote on election day but can't come in, I can't imagine how we actually make that work in early November where it could be snowing. So he did mention that. I'm just not sure where we actually find a location to do drive-through voting, which essentially is you're driving through and doing what you would normally do by walking into a polling location.
So like the West Side Garage?
The West Side Garage, I do not believe has. Yeah, let's take this conversation offline because I don't know if we have a location for that just yet.
Okay.
So perhaps just a suggestion for the next meeting on this particular issue, you could give us maybe an update on what you've used in the past for early voting, how many days, the hours, and then if you can brainstorm a little bit about if we want to enlarge those hours, or you might have ideas, or others on staff might have ideas about how we could increase the early voting. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yes, Terry.
I just want to say something on the drive-through voting. So we don't have anything set in mind. Can we please not make it the November election? That will be absolute chaos.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Something new. If we're trying something new like that, I really think it needs to be on a smaller election so we can all figure it out, and not one that's going to be drawing so many people in anyways.
I think so.
Well said. And new voters as well.
Right.
And
I agree.
infrequent voters. Well said.
Just like I don't think we should have a bunch of polling locations for early voting. Let's stick with what we know.
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
And of course, the first thing I would like to see is if we could have as many or all of our original locations take place and then go to a backup after that. I think you'll get more workers to say yes if they believe they're coming back to their location.
And yours is one of them that said no.
Yeah. Oh, one of my, St. Bernard's bowed out?
Yeah.
Oh, that I did not know. I'm
Yeah.
surprised, actually.
And maybe, I think, Terry, you made this point before. I think it's really an excellent point. And I also think we don't know what that universe is going to look like in November. And I understand if a church is not in session for its parishioners, or a place of worship is not in session for its congregants, it's very hard to open up the doors for voting. But I think you're 100% correct to the extent that we can keep the polling locations that we currently have. That would be great. And quite frankly, Chris, just like the I want to say AMVETs, I think that's wrong, but the one on the folks who offered their building for a polling location, maybe, this has brought some awareness to entities that have buildings that would be appropriate for voting to then offer their buildings.
We had asked them before, and it was the person that was running it that said no. This
Yes.
person that's running it now is a retired police officer, and he came in.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice.
So any other items to add to our very long list? Okay, hearing none. I don't know if there's really anything to vote on with that issue. Celestine, you can.
So I would just say, refer all items to staff. That would be my,
All items,
Alders,
okay.
do you have
I
any other
move to
suggestions?
refer all items to staff.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Who
Second.
was the second?
I am Terry.
All those in favor
Aye.
I
and opposed? Okay, and it's unanimous. So we'll move on to number 2. And that's the meeting dates and deadlines.
Chris, why don't you offer some deadlines that we have before us? We've kind of discussed this already. When I had first contacted you, I had thought we would be meeting, fairly consistently, definitely until September, but it seems like there's a deadline in front of us that we have to deal with. So, Chris, why don't you give some information so that the committee can make a decision about when it needs to meet next and how frequently before that new deadline?
Well, like I said, the 25th is when we will be getting the first batch of absentees out, and I would like as many in for then as possible. So that's my main concern, is getting people to absentee vote to get in their request as soon as possible. The other thing is, and I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I think, and the reason why I'm kind of questioning is because it's a federal election. I think it's 30 or 60 days before an election that we have to notify people of a polling location change. So I'll have to look that up to see being elected. Oh, you have it?
I got it. Let me just
Okay.
look here for a second.
Okay, thanks.
Deadline for governing body of municipality to establish polling places for partisan primary is July 12th,
Okay.
30 days before.
So we have to get that all set. I mean, we can, like we did this last time, you can do it on an emergency basis. The WEC, confirmed that that was okay. We already had to do it with another place on Irwin where they didn't tell us that they closed, and it was less than 30 days. And we had to, we did a resolution, and then we had to try and let people know where they had to go and vote. That's a huge issue. We don't want to confuse people. And so if we're doing it for August, best practice is to do it for November also. Doesn't have to, but that's best practice. They used to say it had to be, but now the WEC is saying, that's best practice because we don't want to confuse people.
So then what would be the thing that we need to do and when? Mayor had mentioned June 25th.
That's why we need to get started on, letting people know how they can request an absentee ballot.
Okay.
Like now.
Okay.
Yeah. And as far as polling locations, Celestine, if you're going to have them call, because then if some aren't, we need ideas.
Right.
Because you and I and Kim, we know
Yes.
how hard that is.
Yes, it is. Very hard, unfortunately.
Okay, so June 25th, the first date. It's May 14th. So, and I need a little guidance from members here. Do you want to meet weekly? At one point, it was mentioned that it would be twice a week. What seems to be a workable but efficient way to do this and to be helpful?
I guess.
What do you need, Chris? How often do you need us?
I would think once a week would be enough. I don't know if
I think,
twice a week.
yeah.
At least let it
You know,
go a week, and then after that, we need to meet more than,
I'm going to be honest. I mean, this is what Kim and I do, and this is what we did the last time. So this is just normal for us. I don't know what to say, other than we can call the places we have, call the people that we have. It's really a matter of just getting the word out. And then if polling places say no, well, then we need you guys to go out and find places that would work with your connections. Because, we're pretty much tapped out. We've tried everything. And that's why I've been trying to combine polling locations. People don't want us anymore. People don't want people roaming in their buildings. So that's why this is such an issue. And that's why people are going, and I know we can't, going to the all mail, because this is getting harder and harder to find polling locations, to find people that want to work. So all that I can do is bring back the information to you in a week, what I have, and then we go from there and then see if we need the next week again. I don't know what else to say. I appreciate the group. I totally appreciate the group, but it's not anything different than what we normally do, except asking for more money.
Right.
Terry?
Chris, does 1 week give you enough time to get a hold of all the polling locations and discuss options with them? Or do you need a little bit longer?
The mayor's office will do the polling locations. Some are hard to get a hold of because they're not open right now. But they did a great job going through that twice before the last election. The poll workers, I'll send out the mass email like I always do, and then call the ones that don't have email. But even if I ask for an answer right away, I don't get it, but all that I can do is update you on what I get.
So should we meet in 1 week from today, same time?
Now, Allison? Sorry, was that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. No, it's fine. I was just going to say that I understand, Chris, that this is in some ways normal for you, but I guess I took part of our work to be as a committee to be thinking about okay, there's many different scenarios, but there's a possible election scenario where things are very locked down, there's some medium locked down, and kind of all the way down. And for us to be thinking about, like, what does this mean for citizens, and what does this mean for the people who are trying to access the ballot? And so I think that, it's important meeting whenever. I wonder if there are ways, is there, not to assign myself too much homework, but are there things that we could be investigating that we could bring back to you, as well as the information that you want to bring back to us?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, because I hear this a lot, number one, I am a citizen of the city of Green Bay and have for most of my life. And my job is to make it that everyone has equal access to the ballot. And I strive to do that. And so I understand alders have their certain groups of people. To me, I have the whole city. I was so disappointed when people couldn't get an absentee ballot. But I think if you ask people in City Hall, they know how hard that the clerk team worked. So I just want to make that clear that that is my goal also. But you have to understand that it's very hard to make people work with you when they don't have to. These buildings that are polling locations, some, oh my gosh, some bend over backwards for the poll workers. They supply the kitchen, the microwave, the whole shebang. Some, you can tell, they don't want us there. But somebody higher up said we had to. So when I don't know, I'm just finding this really hard because even poll workers, and like I said, I worked with tons of people scheduling in all my jobs. If it isn't something that puts food on the table, some don't own it, like Karen said. And that's the frustration. It's not that we didn't plan, we planned, and that's what we're doing again. But again, I can see it. In my world, it's no different than what we did the last time. And I'm so worried the same thing's going to happen again because it was out of our control. So that's where I stand. I'm doing exactly. Do you have something to say, Alder Weary?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be glad to. Chris, I view this committee, and I think Alder Dorf probably does too, as we're here to help you brainstorm, advocate, to push where we need to, whether it's on council or to push you. We really need to work smarter, not harder. We're here to help in any way we can. So I understand you think it's going down the same road. We're here to make sure it doesn't. That's the only reason I'm on this committee, to make sure it doesn't go down the same road. So.
But everything.
Well, I hope you're right, but expect the worst.
See,
yeah.
Well, I think there's and this is just my 2 cents, but I think there's a difference between expecting the worst and planning for the worst, right? I think you are definitely, this is your world, the election, and the elections you've done in the past have been extraordinary, but this pandemic has changed everything. I mean, this has changed everything. So I think what we're here, and again, I would second what Alderman Wary is saying, that we're here to help and to help you in a situation that nobody has ever, encountered before, right? And best case scenario, things will be better. It will be easier, but we have to plan for the worst. And I think planning for the worst does not mean expecting that the worst will happen. I think we need to plan and anticipate problems. And we've discussed all the sort of areas that we. It sounds like everybody thinks we should do a weekly meeting. Is there a motion for that?
I think a week sounds like a lot. But I'm not necessarily a big advocate of meetings.
I believe we need to. I believe we need to do it. If everybody can't be here, they can't be.
Well,
Oh,
Well, we need to have quorum in order to meet. So that's 5 of us.
lost Barb.
We could,
I'll make a motion that we meet weekly until otherwise changed.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, Karen, okay. All those in favor of meeting weekly, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
I,
Carrie, one vote opposed.
yep.
Barb is frozen, I will note. I don't know if it's, and I'm not an expert on civic vote or whatever the thing is called, so I don't know if she's voting there, but
Only if you ask for the board does you vote actually on there, otherwise it's verbal.
okay. So, and again, I should have boned up on my Robert Rules of Orders, but I think has Barb, she must have closed out. Well, it's passed because there are 9 of us on the committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so 7 in favor and 1 opposed and 1 with a Zoom malfunction at the moment. And we didn't discuss the actual date and time, but is everyone okay with the same date or same Thursday, 5 p.m.?
I can't believe it. I'm
Here's-
back. Jesus. Sorry, what did we decide? Every time I talk, it freezes, it seems.
We assigned everything to you,
Thank you.
all those items.
Alder Dorf is in charge of everything now.
I gotta say something quick though. The 2 people have texted me. I didn't think it's a good idea, but I'm gonna say it. Empty Shopko buildings.
Empty shop. Okay.
Okay, so it's not exactly my idea, but I'm saying it.
So,
There you go.
and then, but then what happens if they get sold
Lease up.
before the election?
You're right. I have gotten a couple texts from an alder and another person and I felt like I had to say it.
And Shopko West is sold already.
Okay, never mind. Okay, sorry. But what did we decide on is it weekly
We
meetings?
voted to have a weekly meeting. We didn't specify a time, but I'm suggesting, I don't know if we need to vote on it, that it's Thursday at 5 p.m.
Thursday at 5 p.m. would be beneficial, although it makes our reporting to council very tight.
Okay.
So, but given the fact that we are in a virtual meeting world, we need to have one meeting at a time. So Thursday at 5 actually does work in terms of us having one meeting at a time, but may make our council agenda published on Friday afternoon.
Okay, so do the alders have a thought on that, or is it fine?
No, I think it's fine.
I think we have to. We have meetings all the other nights.
Okay.
We're using the Zoom, so.
Yes.
I think we need to do that.
And actually, the conflict is not with Zoom. The conflict is with YouTube, actually.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, YouTube then, whatever the conflicts were.
Okay, so
Great job. Motion to adjourn.
Yes. Okay, a motion to adjourn on the floor. Any second?
I'll second.
Terry seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All in favor. And this meeting is adjourned.